The bar for excellence has never been so low. Most of your competition quits after the first sign of difficulty because they've never known what hard feels like. If it's hard for you, it's hard for everyone. And most people avoid hard things, which is why you can beat most people by just trying.
I think the vast majority of people don't actually know what it looks like to put tremendous effort into something. And I think one of the most valuable things that the office, which now you're going to have, has given me is the people who now work in my proximity. One of the number one things that I get back as feedback is like, I really didn't understand how much he works. And like, he doesn't stop. And it's easy to say these things, and it's hard to actually, because one of the difficulty is, especially the vast majority of successful people have one thing in common, which is they're consistent. And consistency, you cannot see in a snapshot. You can't see consistency in a soundbite. You can't see consistency in a reel. And so consistency is one of those things. I think you talked about unlearnable lessons. I think they are difficult to learn without large amounts of exposure. And I think those are the types of lessons that become unlearnable, is that you need large amounts of exposure in order to encapsulate the lesson itself. And so trying is one of those.
Like the act of trying.
Yes. And so Layla had a mentor of hers say this to her, and it's lived rent free in my mind since then. So we had this thing that we had this house that we were pursuing, and we ended up not getting the house or whatever. The mentor of hers said, "Are you settling, or did you move mountains?" And it was just a great visual for me in terms of like, did you try, or did you move the fucking world to make it happen? And when you think about like the extreme versions of this, which is maybe the person that you care about most in the world dies if you don't, the amount of options of action that open up is dramatic. And I think people are so constrained in their thinking of what level of effort is because they haven't considered what trading way more for that thing is. But they would be willing to trade far more for that thing if the trade were clear. But because they've never tried hard at anything, they just think, oh, this is what trying looks like, which might be like the occasional Google search and a couple hours a week of like watching some videos on YouTube on something. It's like, that is not trying. Like, that is not trying. Like, if you cannot count the amount of repetitions that you're having in the hundreds, that is not trying. And like, and the longer I've been doing stuff, that's yielded material reward, the greater my history of delay on me getting what I want with volume. And so it's like, I know that this thing, like everything in my life, volume negates luck. Violence is the answer. Like, these are sayings that are plastered around the wall of this office because they've been so true for me that you can brute force what you want into reality. And yes, today, we talked about trades that we're not willing to make. But if you want something, like, did you fucking move mountains?
Well, the trades that you're not willing to make is you saying, I don't want to move that mountain.
And I think, and that's
perfectly acceptable.
Yeah. Yes. You might say, I could do, because she posed that question, I thought about all these other things that I could do. I was like, well, I could offer an extra $20 million for the house. That would probably get me the house. Okay. Am I willing to do that? No. Okay. What else? I was like, I could, I was like completely deconstrained thinking. I was like, could I pay somebody
kidnap
to, that was a thought, but I wasn't going to say that one. Could I pay someone to, we could figure out, I could have a private investigator figure out when, basically tail them, the other buyer who's thinking about buying the home. And when they're visiting it, have crime occur next to them or near them or in that vicinity to be like, oh, this is not a safe area, right? Like what? And I was like, oh man, I completely opened up now, am I willing to do that? No. But it completely deconstructed my thinking when I just raised the bar of, okay, let's say I would pay anything. And let's start at, this guarantees me success. Okay, I'm not willing to pay that. Okay, well, this also pretty close to guaranteeing me success. Am I willing to pay that? No. Well, this one still guarantees me success. Oh, I'm willing to pay that. And so it starts at goal achievement and then works backwards on price rather than starting with price.
You negotiate the costs with yourself.
Backwards from the assumed success, which is why do so much volume, it would be unreasonable that you were successful.
I think the bar being set incredibly low is it's such a fucking perennial truth. And there's sort of two things happening at once here. One is you can work way harder than you think you can.
Yes.
And another one is most people work so not hard that even a small amount of working hard puts you into a rarefied strata of people. And both of those things are true at the same time, right?
Yeah. And I'll add a third one. And the bigger the goal is, the fewer the people who are pursuing it, just because they think it is a big goal and therefore it must be harder to achieve.
That's the Ferris thing about most people try to achieve mediocre goals, which makes them the most competed for.
And they assume that how difficult it is to compete for that goal must therefore extrapolate proportionally.
On the consistency point, no one cheers you for not drinking for a day, not smoking on a long drive, or not overeating for one night. No single workout or meal is ever impressive on its own. The reason so few people understand success is consistency never looks impressive in the moment, only at the end. The point that you were making before around you don't get to see the process, you don't get to see what trying looks like, right? Trying is opaque, outcomes are obvious. What you have done is you have made what was previously processed into an observable outcome, at least a little bit. In fact, Alex spends a lot of time in his office. Let's say, I assumed that he's working. I already knew the output of work that he was getting out of him, but now I've actually seen the process that he goes through in order to be able to get that. And unless you are moment by moment turning your process into some kind of an outcome, live streaming it, tracking it, journaling publicly or privately or whatever, no one ever actually gets to see the inputs, only the outcomes. And no one knows, that's real impressive. Maybe it came easily to him.
Yeah.
Maybe he's able to crack it out in half an hour. Maybe he's got a team of people that do it on his behalf. Maybe. And yeah, you can try way harder than you think you can. And most people aren't trying at all.
I'll give a tactical thing that has helped for trying. When you work, and you actually are working, you're writing the emails that you need to write, you're preparing for the podcast, you're doing that work that you know is not short work. This is going to take me 2 hours, this is going to take me 4 hours. When you get to the end of that and you're like, man, I'm kicked. I earned my shower today. I think the difference is that at that point, you grab a bottle of water, and then you look at your to-do list at the next large thing and say, great, let's start on this. And I think people who don't witness that happen, they don't see 4 hours, and this is what working side by side someone can do. I remember when we have a new director of marketing. In his first week, we needed to write some massive amount of stuff, and he was like, okay, so we have to do this, and I was like, great, pull up a document, let's go. And he was like, oh, like now? And I was like, you got something else to do? And he was like, oh, I mean, no, okay, yeah, let's do it now. And then we shared screen for 8 hours, and then we finished it. And it was like, oh, wow. I was like, great, what's the next thing? And he was like, oh, yeah, we have this other thing I guess we can do too. And I could see his like perception on the level of work shifting in real time.